All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring something you probably don't think much about, but it's everywhere.
I know what you mean.
Bacteria.
Oh, yeah. We're surrounded.
Exactly. Specifically, we're looking at Listeria monocytogenes.
Ah, Listeria.
Yeah, it can cause some real problems, especially for certain people.
Definitely.
To understand just how sneaky this bacteria can be,
Uh-huh.
we're going to walk through this fictional case study.
Oh, cool.
And from the OpenStax Microbiology textbook.
Great textbook.
You can find a link to it in the video description.
Awesome.
So picture this. We have Jeni, who is 24 years old, super health conscious,
Good for her.
pregnant.
Okay.
She eats well,
Healthy?
exercises,
Great.
even gets her milk from a local farmer, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
Organic raw milk.
Oh, wow.
But then suddenly she's hit with fever, fatigue, muscle aches.
Oh.
Sounds familiar, right? Like the
Yeah.
flu,
Yeah.
classic flu symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So she heads to the clinic. But here's where things get interesting,
Oh,
because pregnancy is a unique situation.
right.
The body's immune system is dialed down a bit
It is.
to protect the baby.
Exactly.
So does that mean
Uh,
she's actually more vulnerable to infections?
Absolutely. What might be a minor cold for you or me
Right.
could be a much bigger deal for someone like Jeni.
Wow.
And because of those risks, her doctor
Hmm.
immediately suspects our microscopic villain, Listeria monocytogenes.
Listeria.
Yeah.
Why does that ring alarm bells?
Well, you see, Listeria infection, it's
Yeah.
also known as Listeriosis,
Okay.
and it has a mortality rate of 20%.
Whoa.
That's 1 in 5 people who get it might not make it.
Wow.
So, yeah, the doctor's right to be concerned, especially with Jeni being pregnant.
That's serious. So we got a health-conscious mom to be
Right.
potentially dangerous bacteria,
Yes.
a worried doctor.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, they need to figure out if Jeni actually has listeriosis.
Hmm.
And to do that,
Yeah.
they have to isolate and identify the bacteria.
So like a bacterial detective story?
You could say that.
What kind of clues are they looking for?
Well, the first thing they do is they take a sample of Jenna's blood
Okay.
and they streak it onto a special petri dish
Okay.
called sheep blood agar.
Sheep blood agar. That sounds a little creepy. Like a vampire movie or something.
Right.
So what is sheep blood agar?
Well, sheep's blood is sterile, so it provides a perfect environment for bacteria to grow
Oh, okay.
without any other microbes getting in the way.
I see.
They incubate these plates at body temperature.
Okay.
And if Listeria is the culprit, small grayish colonies will appear.
So they're just waiting for these little bacterial colonies to pop up?
Not quite. There's another telltale sign. These Listeria colonies are surrounded by a clear zone.
A clear zone. Is that like a force field the bacteria create?
Think of it more like a scene of total destruction. The bacteria have devoured the red blood cells in the agar. It's called beta hemolysis.
Okay, now that sounds a bit vampire-y.
Right. But the thing is, other bacteria can cause beta hemolysis too.
Oh, okay.
So to be extra sure, they perform another test. It's called the catalase test.
The catalase test.
Yep. They basically see if the bacteria produce bubbles when exposed to hydrogen peroxide.
Like the stuff we use for cuts and scrapes.
The very same.
Yeah.
And in Jeni's case, the colonies bubble up,
Okay.
indicating a positive catalase response,
Uh-huh.
which rules out some other suspects, like streptococcus.
So it's not strep throat,
Yep.
one suspect down. But how do they get closer to pinning Listeria as the bad guy?
Next up is gram staining.
Gram staining.
It's a classic technique where they use special dyes to categorize bacteria
Okay.
based on their cell wall structure. And wouldn't you know it, Listeria is gram positive.
Gram positive.
Yep, meaning it takes on a specific color under the microscope.
Okay.
This narrows down the possibilities even further.
So they're getting closer to the culprit.
They are.
But it sounds like they need one more piece of evidence to be absolutely sure.
You got it. Listeria has a very unique way of moving around. It's called tumbling motility.
Tumbling motility.
It's almost like it's doing somersaults under the microscope.
Somersaulting bacteria. Now, that's a visual I wasn't expecting.
Right. This tumbling motion is pretty much a dead giveaway for Listeria.
So they've got their clear zones, their positive catalase test, their gram-positive staining, and their acrobatic bacteria. Case closed.
All signs point to Listeria. But remember, this is a pregnant woman we're talking about.
Right.
There's another even more concerning question they need to answer.
What's that?
Has the infection spread to the baby?
Oh, man.
Yeah. They'll test a sample of amniotic fluid for Listeria.
Okay.
And just to be extra cautious,
Uh-huh.
they do a highly sensitive molecular test, too.
Oh, wow.
This one looks for Listeria's DNA.
Like a bacterial fingerprint.
Exactly. That's pretty cool. And thankfully, both tests come back negative.
Oh, good.
The baby is safe.
That's a relief. What a relief.
Yeah.
But what about Jeni?
Yeah,
She's still battling listeriosis, right?
absolutely. The standard treatment for listeriosis is a heavy dose of antibiotics,
Okay.
usually ampicillin or penicillin, delivered intravenously for 2 weeks.
Wow.
It's a tough fight, but luckily Listeria is still pretty sensitive to these medications.
That's good. So after 2 weeks of intense treatment, is Jeni back to her green smoothies and yoga classes?
Thankfully, yes. Jeni makes a full recovery,
Great.
and she's back to enjoying her healthy lifestyle.
Wow.
A happy ending to a potentially very scary situation.
That is a huge relief.
Yeah.
But this whole ordeal raises a big question.
What's that?
What makes Listeria so tricky in the first place? What made it such a threat to Jeni?
Well, Listeria is a bit of a survivalist.
Okay.
You know, it thrives in conditions that would send other bacteria running for cover.
Really?
In fact, it's what we call a saberphile.
A psychophile. Okay, now you're just making up words.
No, I promise it's a real thing. It means Listeria loves the cold. It can actually grow and multiply at refrigerator temperatures.
What?
So while your leftovers might be safe from other bacteria in the fridge, Listeria might be having a little feast in there.
Wait, so my fridge is like a Listeria buffet.
It highlights why proper food storage and handling are so important.
Okay.
And there's another thing. Listeria is also halotolerant.
Halo what now? You're going to have to break that one down for me.
Basically, it can handle high salt concentrations.
Okay.
So things like deli meats, cheeses, cured foods, environments that would make other bacteria shrivel up.
Right.
Listeria is like, bring on the salt.
Wow, so it loves the cold, it loves the salt. This bacteria is hardcore.
Exactly.
Good.
And when you combine those traits with its ability to contaminate food sources, like meat, dairy, and even produce,
Oh, wow.
you start to see why it's such a concern, especially for pregnant women.
That makes sense, and it makes Jenna's love of raw milk even more worrisome. Could that have been what exposed her to Listeria?
It's definitely a possibility. Remember, Listeria can be found in soil and water,
Right.
which can easily contaminate animal products.
Okay.
Raw milk hasn't been pasteurized. That's the heat treatment that kills off harmful bacteria.
Yeah.
So there's a higher risk of consuming something like Listeria along with your raw milk.
So even though Jeni was trying to eat healthy, that raw milk might have backfired.
It can happen. While raw milk does have its proponents, it's important to be aware of the risks, especially for pregnant women, older adults, or anyone with a compromised immune system.
Yeah, so what's the takeaway here for our listeners who might be pregnant or know someone who is?
Food safety during pregnancy is absolutely crucial. There are certain foods pregnant women are advised to avoid to minimize the risk of Listeria infection.
Okay, hit us with the list. What should we be steering clear of?
The big ones are soft cheeses like brie, camembert, and feta.
Okay.
Deli meats and hot dogs are also on the list unless they're heated until steaming hot.
Gotcha.
Smoked seafood like lox is another one to avoid.
Okay.
And of course, unpasteurized dairy products, including raw milk, are a definite no-no.
So when in doubt, cook it out.
Exactly. And if you're ever unsure, it's always best to talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian.
Makes sense.
They can give you the most up-to-date and personalized advice.
All right, so we've talked about how Listeria can survive in some pretty extreme environments. But this whole case study really highlights how quickly things can go south if you do get infected.
It does.
What if Jeni hadn't gone to the clinic right away?
Oh,
What could have happened?
that's a really important question. For pregnant women, listeriosis can lead to premature labor, miscarriage, or even stillbirth.
Oh, wow.
And for the baby, if they do survive,
Right.
they can face serious complications,
Like what?
like meningitis, sepsis, and even long-term neurological issues.
So Jeni going to the doctor when she did could have literally saved her baby's life.
Absolutely. That's why recognizing those early symptoms, fever, fatigue, muscle aches, and getting medical help is so important. Early diagnosis and treatment can make all the difference.
This has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how resilient and dangerous Listeria could be. You mentioned earlier that climate change could make things even trickier.
Yeah.
How so?
That's a great question, and it brings up some important concerns about the future of food safety. Remember how we talked about Listeria being a psychrophile?
Yeah, loving those cooler temperatures.
Right. The back of your fridge is basically its happy place.
Right.
But as our planet warms due to climate change, Those colder environments that typically inhibit bacterial growth, they might become less effective.
So warmer temperatures could create a more hospitable environment for Listeria.
Exactly. And that could have serious implications for our food supply chain.
Wow.
Think about food storage, transportation, even the way we handle food at home.
Yeah.
As temperatures rise, the risk of Listeria contamination could increase.
So this isn't just a concern for pregnant women anymore.
Right.
It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Precisely. We may need to rethink our current food safety standards and practices to adapt to a warmer world.
Okay, so that's a pretty sobering thought. What can we do about it? Should we all just start cranking down the AC in our kitchens?
Well, it's going to take a more comprehensive approach than that.
Right.
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
Understanding the risks and taking simple precautions like practicing proper food handling and storage.
So washing our hands, keeping our fridges clean, cooking food thoroughly.
Exactly. Those basic food safety rules we all know,
Yeah.
but maybe don't always follow.
Right.
And staying informed about updated guidelines and recommendations from health organizations is also key.
Good point. This conversation has definitely made me rethink my own food safety habits.
I'm glad to hear it.
But I have to ask,
Yeah.
what about those bigger picture solutions? What can be done on a larger scale to address this potential Listeria problem in a warming world?
That's where things get really interesting. We might need stricter regulations for food producers,
Okay.
improved storage and transportation technologies,
Uh-huh.
and even more public awareness campaigns to educate people about the risks.
So it sounds like a multi-pronged approach is needed.
Absolutely. It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
That's going to require collaboration between scientists, policymakers, and the public.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. From the nitty-gritty science behind Listeria to its potential impact on pregnant women, and even the future of food safety in a warming world.
We've certainly journeyed from the microscopic to the global, haven't we?
We have.
And I hope our listeners have gained a newfound appreciation for the interconnectedness of it all.
Me too. It's amazing how these tiny organisms can have such a big impact on our health and even our planet.
It's a constant reminder that we're not just living in an environment, we're living with an entire ecosystem,
Right.
even at the microscopic level.
And understanding that ecosystem, as we've done today with Listeria, is crucial for making informed decisions about our health and well-being.
Couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to these hidden threats.
Well said. A big thank you to you for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive into the world of Listeria. It's definitely given me a lot to chew on.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always exciting to share these insights and hopefully spark some curiosity in our listeners.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. If you want to learn more, don't forget to check out the OpenStax Microbiology textbook. We've got the link in the video description. And remember, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.